everyone, and welcome to this amazing episode where we are talking about being rooted in our stories and rising to the occasion to share them with all of you, as well as ourselves as we become aspiring authors and sharing our messages. Today, I have a very special author, Ashley, with me today. And, everyone, when you get together and you write an anthology, we just share such special spaces with one another. And today, Ashley's going to share that special space with all of you listening. So, Ashley, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Ashley Elizabeth, and this is the first book that I've ever been a part of, although I have wanted to be an author since I was a very little girl. I had dreams of being an author. I can remember as far back as like being in first grade. And I'm so excited about this. I'm so excited to be able to be sharing this message with everybody. I was completely honored to be in the midst of such an incredible group of women who got to put this book together. And I have kind of a lot of different parts of me. This is one piece of it. I'm also a teacher. So I've been teaching for about 16 years. And then I also have some businesses that I run on the side. But really the thread that connects all of them is that I really love to just show up and serve people and find ways to help people in authentic ways. So I'm really excited to be able to be a part of this with you today.
I couldn't be more honored to be with you in your first book. It's amazing how life brings people together. And I'm just so excited about that. With that, you've wanted to be an author your entire life. What inspired you to start writing your story in this book? What was the initial spark that led you to put pen to paper, or start typing with your fingers or what have you? Why did you say yes?
Yeah, so it's really interesting because I started working with CBD and the plant and all these things a few years ago, and I had dabbled in what my story looked like, but I'm a very poetic human. I think in poetry. I write in poetry a lot, and I had put a few things together occasionally to try and tell my story in ways that felt accessible for me and also didn't necessarily feel like I had to tell my whole story because I don't think I was ready for that yet. And when you gave the invitation to do this, and when you were just talking about that you were excited I get to write my first book with you, it's funny how, we have these aha moments in our lives. I'm realizing that there was a reason I waited this long, and I have not articulated this to you even prior to right now in this moment, but it feels really right because I feel like the space that you create for people to tell their stories is such a safe space. And it's a space where we know that we don't have to show up in any kind of predetermined way. It's not a show. There's not some kind of step or pattern that we have to somehow fit into in order to know that our story is going to make it from our brains to our page to your book. I think that I think there was some divine intervention here for me in my life, just because I think I was supposed to write this right here and right now. So to try and answer your question, there's very little that you do that I don't want to be a part of. So when Rachelle asks the question, my standard response is yes, sign my name, sign me up. And also, I know that in this place where I'm at in my life, it was time to tell my story. And I've even sent what I wrote to a couple of different people. I've talked to a couple of different people about it. And these are people who've been in my life a really long time. And they had no idea because I tend to play things pretty close to the vest as much as I am an open book about how I'm feeling. And I love to hear how other people are feeling. I'm not always the first to share my story in quite the detail that I shared it in this book. And my yes came from you. My yes came from the journey leading to here. And my yes came because I know that there are people out there who need a story like mine because I needed a story like mine. And I wish that I could go back and share my story with younger me because I know that she needed it too. So there's a very long answer to your question, but
No, I
that's
love
why.
that. That leads me into my next question, that when you started sharing your story with first and foremost with yourself, and then you shared it with other people, What kind of reactions did you get? And how did you feel? First, let's talk about how did you feel about getting your story down, sharing it with yourself? And then how did you feel sharing
Yeah.
it with other people and receiving whatever reactions they had?
Yeah. It's a great question. So I, when I first said yes to this, it took me seconds to have an outline down of what I want to talk about because I'm so familiar with my story and I've done a lot in the just personal growth areas. And so it's something that I've been working on and working with and stepping into for a long time. And so it didn't take me very long to get that outline down, but to make myself sit down and write. I waited all the way until the day before our deadline because I think in my brain there was a part of me that knew. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. That knew that once I put it down, there wasn't gonna be a way to pull back away from it. There's something, and as a teacher, I'm a writing teacher, and I tell kids all the time, there's so much power in putting words on paper because when they only exist in our minds, we can talk ourselves in and out of them, and we can pretend that they look different or sound different, or we can decide that the message that goes with them looks or feels differently than maybe what's rooted in our core. But when we put pen to paper or type it out or whatever it is, there is something so tangible about it and something that is so real. You have to really look at the words that you wrote and the way that it came out. And I think I knew that when I did that, that it was going to be big for me and that it was going to unlock some things for me. And so I waited and I waited and I waited and I waited some more. And then when I sat down to do it, I wrote for around 8 hours straight. Because once I started, it was like unlocking a flood. And it was definitely not a perfect first draft or anything like that, but it was something that I could not stop once I started it. And there was a lot of freedom in that. It wasn't scary once I was writing. It wasn't the hardest part was starting. Even though I had that outline, even though I had known what direction I was going, the hardest part was, writing the first few lines. And then it just went and it went and it went and it went. And I knew myself well enough to know that when I was done, I wasn't going to go back and look at it because I didn't need any kind of my own perfectionism showing up and getting in the way because that wasn't a part of the flood, right? It was just like I'd open these gates and I needed to let it all out. And so the second that I was finished, it was like 10 o'clock that night. I think it was due at midnight, something like that. And I sent it to you guys right away. I didn't even look back through it because I just have to have it in your hand, and I have to know that what I just did, yes, it was for an audience, and I hope it really, resonates and impacts people in a powerful way. But in those moments, it was for me, and it was letting all of these things loose and putting them together in a structured way, unlike what I'd ever done before.
I
So,
love that you brought up that you did it for you, first and foremost. And I think that that's really important for everyone to hear is that it's not selfish to step into things to do for yourself because what we have backwards in this world is what a servant heart really looks like. And a servant heart needs to start with yourself. And because then things can flow better. You're opening up, you said the floodgates and that visualization of water. You have to give yourself permission to unblock the flow because you can serve better. And I think that that's really important. And that's what is so important about writing and being in that vulnerable space. A lot of times people don't realize the process of
no.
vulnerability in writing. And it's, you'll pick up a book, you'll open it up, you're like, oh, that's such a great story, da, da, da. But the reason why I'm doing these podcasts is so that all of you listening can understand that whatever preconceived things we have in our mind of how to write a book, like one author brought up, she was going to sit down and have a cup of tea and just be in that beautiful space. That is not realistic. We've had people that have waited till the last minute. We had people that did outlines. We had people that wrote a little bit each week. We had people, all of it. And whatever your style is perfect for you. And I think that, I find it interesting that here you've been a teacher for over 16 years. You've encouraged others to write, all of those things, but it took you 16 years to write for yourself for the first time. And I think that that's such a beautiful, authentic share, because so many times in our lives, we're always sharing for others, doing for others, giving for others, encouraging for others. And that transformational moment is when you do all of that for you. And to be a part of that has been such a huge honor for me. And so I want to take a second and say thank you for letting me be a part of that with you. And so when you shared it with other people, what kind of reactions did you get, and how did you receive that? Because it's so important to share about how we received other people's opinions of us.
Yeah, definitely. Well, one thing I was going to say, kind of related to what you were just talking about, too, is I think a lot of people, when it comes to writing and their process, I think in this, like who I am as an academic writer is different than how I showed up to write this book. Right. And so I think a lot of people have it in their heads about what a writing process look like. And it's based on what we experienced in school, and school has changed so much, thank God. In a lot of ways, like there's so much more freedom there for so many people. But I think being able to separate that and finding your identity as an author rather than trying to fit into some model that was designed to conform messages, I think is really important. And so, I don't know, just as you were talking, I was like, I really want people to know that even as a teacher and as somebody who helps students learn how to write, and I'm even stepping into some of the adult realm of helping adults learn how to write again, that it is supposed to be like stepping into freedom, not stepping into constraints, which I think a lot of us associated with pre now writing experiences or school academic writing experiences. So take that for whatever that's worth. And then when it comes to feedback from people, so you know that you were the very first person that I sent mine to. So I was like, when I was in the middle of my flood, I knew that who I wanted to share it with first, I wanted to share it with somebody who was safe, because I felt like there was a very real, raw me that was beating on a page. And so, not because I didn't have other people in my life that are safe places too, but there's just a lot of power when you know you're going to send it to somebody who is going to see you show up on a page. And so I sent it to you. I have shared it with a handful of people since, and a lot of them that are, people who are close to me, friends, family, things of that nature. And the overwhelming feedback from people has been, oh my goodness, I didn't know this was your story, even though I knew this was your story. Because like I said, I've been an open book. The fact that I've dealt with anxiety for the majority of my life, the fact that I've, overcome some different things, that is not a new thing for me to be talking about. But to tell the story, all of the details of the story, the reactions from most have been, I had no idea. I had no idea what it was that you really experienced. And then the follow-up feedback to that has been, I don't know what feedback to give you. Thank you for telling your story. It's been, I even sent it to somebody anticipating that there would be feedback. And she was like, I don't have any feedback. All I want to do is like give you a hug and tell you thank you for telling your story. And I think there is a piece of me that is where at the end of this writing process that is struggling a little bit to label it as finished, because I know that the story is going to go to people that are going to be, it's going to be outside of my control, right? It's not going to be me sharing this with individuals. This is going to be this book, which is going to be this incredibly beautiful book, that I know all of these stories. I've read every single story that's in it. I can't wait for people to read these stories, because even as somebody who is in this book, the women's stories who are in this book impacted me. And so I know that this is going to be, I know that this is going to be a really impactful space for people. And it's a very humbling thought to know that I'm in that midst, you know, and to know that there's going to be people out there like whose faces I will, oh, it's going to make me emotional, like whose faces I will never see, right? Who are going to be reading this book. And I think, I don't know, I think there's just so much power in that, that it's hard to like label it as done, because I feel that impact, like, and the desire to serve people at that level, knowing what it's done to serve me, and knowing what it's done for me to read the stories of other women in this book. So I don't know that I actually answered your question, but I'm all in my feels right now, and that's where all of
No, go with
standing.
it, flow with it. No, no expectations, you know that with
I
anything.
do.
It's an
Woo.
invitation to just kind of open up.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that really touched me was when you said, I don't think I'm done yet. And I want people to feel that way. Writing a chapter in an anthology is the beginning.
Mm.
When you write, this is my final chapter, that's what it is just a chapter.
Mm-hmm.
And life is all about the continuation of multiple chapters. So don't feel, when you go into an anthology, for instance, don't go into it thinking you have to get it all down in one thing. It's just the beginning. You're just starting. And the cool thing about all this is that, let's say you write on the same topic multiple times in multiple books and then you can bring it all together, mix it up a bit, and then write your own book on the same thing. Like, that's what I want people to understand. I know that there's a lot of different ways to write books, publish, who you're with, da 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 da. But I want people to understand that, at least through Wildly Free, it's in the name. Be wildly free in your journey, in your adventure, and we will never have expectations, and we will never change your voice. And I'm feeling kind of passionate about this through what you said, because it's about your voice. And anytime you're ever with anyone else that you're writing a book, make sure your voice will be the one that's heard, because your voice is important, not the expectation of somebody else to publish a book, to sell it, to make money, to whatever. This is not about the business. This is about the permission and creating the space for people to feel safe. And
Mm-hmm.
that's all I want anybody to feel. So I'm glad that you feel that way.
Definitely.
You've already talked about so many like kind of challenges, fears, things you've overcome. Is there anything else that you want to share with everyone listening to this about that process that maybe you haven't? And if not, that's fine. But is there anything else that maybe you might feel like somebody's waiting to hear? Oh, me too.
Well, so I read a book, gosh, years ago now, and it was written by Jessica Honegger. It's called Imperfect Courage. And I feel like in that she talks a lot about just the two words, like go scared. And I think that in this point in my life, even when I said yes to this, it didn't really matter that I was having some of those doubts and fears. It doesn't even matter now in this moment that I'm, maybe struggling a little bit to tie a bow on it or whatever. I think the the gift that I have gotten just personally from being a part of the process, I would hate for anybody to deny themselves that same gift because there was a fear or a sense of not enoughness or a sense of who really would want to read my story. Because prior to me writing this, I also would have, I don't know, there was a component of me being a little bit surprised by quite how many people were like, I didn't really know that this was your story, when I felt like I'd been telling my story for a long time and I felt like I was an open book. And I don't know, I think I would be as susceptible as anybody to think, well, like, who am I to write this story? And who am I to think that there's somebody out there who needs my words or who, the story is going to impact them in, a specific way, because I don't know, I think we're all in danger sometimes of comparing our stories to other people. And I think we're in danger of minimizing the impact of our stories. And so I guess my advice to anybody who is on the fence is the fact that you even are close to the fence means you need to go scared.
I
The
love that.
fact that you're even looking at the fence, it means that it's time. It means you've got a message. And I would hate for you to deny the world this message that you have to give because something inside you was holding you back. It's time to go scared and do it anyway. And when you're done, it didn't have to be perfect, and you don't have to know all the people that it's going to impact, and you don't have to know all the ins and outs. That's the beauty of working with Wildly Free, is because I also trust you guys with my words. And I know that whatever comes of this, it's going to land in the right hands for the right people. And I don't know, the intent behind all of it is exactly as it should have been. So yeah, I guess I would just tell anybody who is close to do it. I'd be in your inbox right now.
I love
Like,
that
Ashley told me to
visualization.
go now.
It's funny, like what you said, if you're on the fence, you're already there. Like,
You're already there.
just go. I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that. With all of that, I am so grateful that you've shared all of this perspective from your personal experience. But my favorite part about doing any podcast is the very end. And I feel like making space for you all to share whatever might be on your heart, whether it's book related, becoming an author related, whatever. But I feel like this is a time where people can really share who they are as a person, not just as an author or whatever. And we have so many messages on our heart that need to be expressed, that need permission to be shared. And so I would love to create that space for you right now. Is there anything from your heart, a message, encouragement, personal share, anything that you would like to share at the end of this podcast?
I think the thing that's coming up for me is similar to things that I've already talked about, but it's funny that you asked that because, well, it's not funny. You did it intentionally, but the work that I do in school with the kids that I have in school, it is very focused on helping them understand the power of their own voice and the power of the messages that they have to give, and also that within writing there is freedom. And I don't want anybody to ever discount that, or to feel like things that they've maybe been told in the past about, I don't know, their own maybe level, or to use a very academic word, proficiency in writing. I would never want something like that to hold somebody back. And the thing that I talk about with my kids more than anything, that has both nothing and everything to do with how we operate in school, or how I operate in school with them, is that I want every decision that we make together to make sure that it's kicking doors open for them. And I think what I want for other people, whether they're reading this book, I want it to kick doors open for them. Whether they're deciding to, sign on and work with Wildly Free, I want it to kick doors open for them. Whether they just, take something from here and they start dabbling in writing of their own, whatever they choose to do with it, I think we tend to either decide a door is closed, or, I don't know, our perception of it somehow is that we're limited. And I just think it's false. And I think that what I want people to know, and gosh, I didn't even think about this, like if I have students who watch this someday, I want them to laugh and know, like, oh my gosh, there she was talking about kicking doors again. Because I want people to know that anywhere you want to go, especially in a space like this, the door is open, the invitation is there. It's just a matter of stepping forward and saying yes, and understanding that it's okay to be scared, and it's okay to not know all the ins and outs of things, and you can go anyway, and that there are these really incredible gifts that are waiting on the other side, things that I don't want you to talk yourself out of. So that's what's on my heart right now in this moment.
I love that. Thank you. I love your heart at all times, all of your messages and all of your love and all of your inspiration. And I'm so glad that everyone listening gets to share a small part of who you are, who you were created to be, and who you're stepping into. So thank you for spending this time to share all of the parts of you with these questions today. And thank you everyone for listening. And until next time in the next podcast, thank you so much.